Okay, here we go. We're live again. Why is this podcast still going? Welcome to the KBeatBot Podcast. Very much welcome to you. More clapping by ourselves in our flat. So welcome back. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time out of your day or night to listen to me talk about shite. If you are just listening just now, just check out the YouTube description. There'll be timestamps of every time of every topic in there. So don't be listening to me the whole way through because no one wants to hear that, do they? Like, let's be honest here. But we're going to start off quickly with a beer. We always have a wee beer during these discussions. And today we're drinking a 7 Giraffes beer. 7 Giraffes is the name of my ex-girlfriends. That took me 3 days to think of that joke with this beer, but okay. And it was crafted in Alloa, Scotland. Because we're in Scotland, so you're going to get a lot more beer stores. But I don't think I've ever done a different beer other than Scottish ones. I need to find one. Maybe find like a Belgian Pilsner or something. But yeah, we're going to be drinking this throughout the whole conversation today. Let's get that open. Ooh. It smells, it's an IPA. It's an extraordinary IPA, apparently. Okay. Alright, it's a little bit flat. Not as in that, like, I've poured it flat, it's just a bit flatline, but it'll do the job. It'll do the job. Anyway, today's topic, what are we talking about? Today we're going to be talking about fucking football, okay? I'm sorry everyone. I know, it's not... Some people like football, some people love it, some people can't stand it, and I'm going to give you a little preface here of that. I know nothing about football, essentially. I prefer other sports. But I do have, I have supported Liverpool in the past, because I never walk alone. But I have watched game. I do know the game. I do know how it's run and the intricacies of football itself. But today I just want to have like a discussion because obviously football has been prevalent in the news this week because of the European Super League. And I just wanted to kind of touch on that and then also look at, from an outsider's view, how football actually impacts our lives. So even if you don't like football or are not interested or have no fucking idea anything about football, I will later on talk about how football is actually probably more important to you than you may actually think it is. But let's just run straight into it. Actually, first of all, how are you doing? Last podcast we talked about the Royals. It was actually snowing. It was snowing in fucking April. But right now, this Saturday afternoon, we have glaring sunshine. Everyone is out, got their taps off, beers at the canal. I had a few beers on Thursday with my mate, and I'm so hungover on Friday. I just don't understand. I don't understand when you're 32, you're still just getting hangovers, and you never learn. You never fucking learn. And right now, I'm drinking a beer at 12:30 in the afternoon. Well, this is when I'm recording it. Hopefully this recording will be out either later on today or tomorrow. Okay, so let's just jump straight into it. So first of all, we're just going to touch on, so during this whole thing, we're going to touch on the European Super League. This will be the first section. The second section will be how I, as an outsider, think football should be reformed. Because I think there is a lot of problems with it, as are with anything. And then the last section will be about how football really impacts our lives and discussing, is football much bigger than we think it is? Because I will discuss, is it a religion or a cult? With that last topic, I really wanted to focus one podcast into that. But it takes a lot of effort to do that, and that's nothing I want to give. And I want to kind of talk about the European Super League right now because it's everywhere, man, isn't it? But if you don't know what's going on, So with the European Super League, early on this week, the European Super League was announced. Essentially, that is a concept developed by these basically rich billionaires who own the top clubs in Europe. So we're thinking it involved 6 UK-based clubs or English clubs, 3 Spanish clubs, 3 Italian clubs. And essentially, they all got together, the owners got together and came up with this European Super League, which essentially is it's a counter to the Champions League, which is a European football tournament. Now, the Super League would run every week, and it would pit these top teams together. So essentially, you're getting the best of the best fighting against each other. And they brought this out, and it got a lot of backlash from fans, from football players, from managers, from the whole football community. At which point they actually had to, well, basically abandon the league within a couple of days. Even governments were getting involved, or the UK government was getting involved. So just kind of wanted to explore really why this happened and what does this mean essentially. So the primary objective of this, and they even admitted themselves, was for money. Essentially, it was to get as much money as possible, and it was kind of headed by a guy called Florentino Perez, who is I think he's Real Madrid's either CEO or chairman, and he had this idea that football is suffering, which he's had a lot of criticism, but he is right on a couple of points, I think. He's saying that football is suffering, that due to COVID and due to popularity, he thinks that football is no longer as popular as it was back in the 70s and 80s. And so they're building this league to generate a lot more money because they're putting the best teams, although they put Tottenham in there. And as I said before, I don't know much about football, so when I say these comments, I could be completely wrong. So please comment, message me. Please prove me wrong. Change my mind if you think I'm wrong or if you agree. Like or dislike the video, I don't care. Just hear me out, essentially. So it's built for money. And there was a report released by BBC News, which I'll find, about the clubs that are being invested in this. So we'll go through the clubs quickly. So it's Tottenham, Man United, Juventus, Inter Milan, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, AC Milan, Arsenal, Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea. Okay? And if you see their net financial debt as reported by BBC News, they all of them were in debt except for Chelsea and Liverpool, where Liverpool's data was not available. Chelsea had made 16.6 million pounds. I don't know where from. I'm not going to look into it. I don't care that much. At the top of it was Tottenham Hotspur. They are in debt for 591.8 million pounds. I think that would be due to the new stadium they've built, because they've built a new stadium in Wembley, as is Manchester United. As I said, this was headed by the Real Madrid chairman, and their team is currently in 146.8 million. Barcelona, another Spanish team, they are in 274.2 million pounds in debt. That's just in 1 year, as per June 2020. These are huge amount of debts, and these clubs obviously have owners, and they don't want to see their money just being flushed down the toilet, especially during COVID. This is not a good time for anyone, even if you have $1 billion in the bank. So they built the Super League because of it. From my understanding, is about commercialization. They understand that football is primarily a European sport, but is the biggest sport in the world. You have obviously America, but they don't have the greatest teams, but they're starting to build up a bigger infrastructure of football up there. But still, markets such as China, Australia, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, these are huge markets for football to really invest in, because these guys have a lot of money to spend. And this is kind of the idea that this league is kind of promoting for. They want to move these teams, which are based in, I mean, 6 of them are based in England, and they want them to play against each other in tournaments, in matches in, for example, New York, in Shanghai, in Dubai. And we've seen this kind of been explored a lot more over the last 10, 15 years with FIFA and UEFA, from my knowledge. Again, I don't know football, although I might be spitting facts here, but I think they did a Champions League final, was it Tottenham v Liverpool? And it was in Qatar, was it? Where was it? It was in the middle of nowhere. Let me just check that. Champions League final, Liverpool v Real. No. It was Tottenham. It was definitely Tottenham. Where was it? Where was it hosted? Madrid. Was it? Was it Madrid? Nah, it wasn't Madrid. Where? Oh, it might have been UEFA. Sorry, the Euro, Europe. I can't. Europe. Shit. It was one of the European League teams, um, and it was held in the middle of nowhere. It was held in Qatar. I think it was 2019, and the reason why they did that, because this is a European competition, so why is it being played outside of it? The reason why they did that, because they want to expand football and they want to make as much money as possible. And this is the main agenda with the European Super League, or ESL, as I'll refer to it from now on. So the Real Madrid guy, his name is Florence. He's not dead. Florentino Perez. He put this forward, and he also kind of smothered it with facts, which just kind of cover that it was just about money. So he said that there was 16 to 24-year-olds are 40% less likely now to watch or be involved with football than they were in the 80s and 90s, which does make sense. I think I could relate to that. And I think if you're a football fan and you're listening to this right now, I know I've seen a few videos about people talking about this, and they're very impassioned fans here. And I think the same argument that they have is, oh, well, I see all my cousins who are 14, 15, and they're loving football. They've got the football on the TV. I think that's true. I think there's plenty of young fans out there. I think there's a lot, definitely. But football is no longer, I think, in this context, their main passion. It's not their sole desire, as would be in the past, where football would be all you could think about. In the 90s, you didn't have the internet. You only had 4 TV channels, so you could only watch football or Countdown on Channel 4. Things have developed now so much that young people have so much to hand. They have so many activities to hand. They're on right now. We're on YouTube. This is a distraction for football. You can watch football on YouTube, but there's also got thousands and millions of other alternate sports, activities, pranks, podcasts. Don't listen to this one, that they can choose from. So this means that the market has become diluted, in my opinion. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. Change my mind. So I think they're putting this agenda that football is dying with young people. And I think I could kind of agree with that. I think I can. As I said before, football has become diluted in a world of entertainment. Football is a sport, but it's also entertainment. You need the TV there. You need the adverts, the footballers. You need the jerseys. You need the stadiums filled out. It's an entertainment. It's a gladiator battle. This is why they built stadiums in Rome, to see 2 people fight, to see 2 gladiators fight. And this is what football and any other sport is. It is an entertainment, although the basis of it is a competition. So I can see that they do have a point with this there. I do agree with them. But the ultimate problem that I have with the league is that they've created this league whereby they've put the best, and I'm putting air quotes here, the best teams in Europe in a league of 20. But they've made some kind of rules where 15 teams signed up, the founding teams essentially, and they can never get demoted. So Manchester United is in there, and they can never get demoted. So even if Manchester United is in this league, they lose every single match 10-0, they cannot be demoted. And that just doesn't make sense, I think. And it doesn't make sense why that doesn't make it competitive. It just becomes an exhibition then. So they have 15 teams, and then they have 5 spots. So they have a 20-team league, and they have 5 spots extra for teams to qualify into the league. And they didn't explain really how teams could qualify, but essentially it'd be the best 5 teams in Europe. Who knows how they get into it? And it just this is problem number one, is that it's uncompetitive. Why would you go to this league and put your best team in, essentially? If you are one of the 15 founding teams, then what's the point? You just turn up, play a match, and then leave. Doesn't matter if you lose 2-0. It just doesn't make sense. Sport is meant to be competitive. It's meant to be, you're meant to have that jeopardy in your mind. The way I can relate to it is if I play a wee bit of tennis back in a day, or a wee bit of football when I was really young. But if you're playing, a tournament or a match, or even if you're just playing Monopoly against your family, you have that sense of jeopardy in your mind, thinking, okay, if I play this move, I could lose that, or if I take that risk, I can win that point. But that is completely lost in this league, because you don't gain anything, you don't lose anything, and that jeopardy, that anxiousness in your back, in your mind, is lost. So there's no point of it. There's no point of it. It's not a competition; it's an exhibition. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with the league, and why it got so much backlash, was it's uncompetitive. The second point was that this competition was going to generate 3 billion euros, or I think pounds, for all the teams in there. So that'll make every team in there 300 billion pounds, 300 million pounds, which is a shit ton of money. As we just discussed before, 10 of those 12 teams are in debt. They are in a lot of debt, and they need that money, as do all football teams. They need money to survive. Football has taken a huge hit with COVID, obviously, because no one's going to the stadiums anymore. No one's watching the games. I think that because they stopped competitive play in the UK, especially, the football clubs weren't making anything. People can't afford to buy the strips. People can't afford to buy, what's it called? Gear. You think of your gear affiliated with footballers. So like your Pepsi Max, with Lionel Messi. I don't know if you've seen the adverts, but any footballer who advertises something, people aren't buying that because, number one, they're not seeing them on the pitch anymore. And I think it's just the hardcore fans that really are invested in that. So, again, monetary-wise, this is huge, because 300 million, then yes, they're going to be signed up to that league if it's a guarantee. And this brought up the question of, well, these billionaire owners, these people who own these teams, are mostly foreign investors outside of the UK. They're just thinking about the money. They're not thinking about the football. They're not thinking about the game at all. They're just thinking about, okay, that's a get rich quick system. Let's fucking do it. So this is what you might have seen on the news, where fans were storming Stamford Bridge in Chelsea. I think 1,000 people went down there. And I think within a couple of hours, Chelsea signed out of it, essentially because of the backlash of fans. And it kind of opened up these questions of, well, why do these rich people own the clubs that we support, that we love, that we have traditions with? They are just breaking tradition. This leads us on to the third point of the criticism of the ESL, is that it doesn't conform to tradition of the beautiful game. Again, I put this in air quotes because I don't believe it's a beautiful game, but sorry, football fans. But why are they breaking the tradition of football? I've seen a couple of commentators talk about this, and they say that the football is meant to be the fans in that area, the people who love the game, who love that stadium, who love the soil that their football pitch is worshipped on, that you have your granddad who's 76 years old. He's been a season ticket holder since the 1960s. He's still going to every game on a Saturday and Wednesday. These traditions are being bulldozed because monetary gain means that now they're not going to go to those games anymore, because the next game will be out in fucking Iceland, or it'll be out in Moscow, or they're just, it's commercializing and basically globalizing the game too much for these teams. And I think this was the outrage from fans, this is the prominent outrage, is that it defied the tradition of football. I'm gonna I'm gonna kind of counter that, because I think, and I will kind of counter this a little bit more on the next topic. I won't talk about it just now. We'll leave that for later on. And this guy Florentino Perez, he said, I mean, if you've seen his interviews, he did a couple of interviews on the most random Spanish shows in the world. There was one interview he did like midnight on like some kind of TV children's talk show. It was hilarious. But he said, he used a tennis example, which is good because I understand tennis. I know people in tennis. Not know people, but I know tennis very well. And he said, why do we constantly see games which are one-sided, which are not very good, which are not high quality, when you could see essentially Roger Federer v Rafael Nadal every week? And I agree with the sentiment. I think the sentiment works there. I think it'd be great to see Rafael Nadal v Roger Federer every week. But again, that doesn't progress the game. If people just want to see Rafael v Federer, of course, people are going to go pay money for that. But these guys are going to get older. Federer is almost 40, Nadal is almost 35. These guys are going to get older, and they're not going to be around forever. Unfortunately, they're staying around a long time. And it doesn't progress the game of tennis for people to push that. So you can put these guys in a bracket, you can put these teams in a bracket where they may push each other, but as we previously discussed, if they're getting paid and there's nothing to lose, then they're not going to push each other. They're just going to kick the ball about a bit, and they're not going to push themselves 100%. But in this context, if you don't push each other, if you don't get pushed by up and rising teams or stars or anything, then the game and the sport does not develop. It doesn't get better. It actually loses in quality, because you just have the same teams, they know the same game, they know how to beat each other, they know how to play each other, and nothing changes. I think that's something that's really missed on in this kind of context, is that there's no development. You cannot develop if you're against the same thing. If I play the same game every day, and I beat it every day, I stay on that same level, as soon as I go to a different level and it's harder, I'm not going to be able to beat it, because all I know is that same level of the game. You need to change levels. And it doesn't matter if you go to easy, because sometimes you can go against easy and there's a different perspective, a different look. And sometimes people move from easy to medium to hard very, very quickly. So I think there's different levels in which this has to be looked at. And it just makes it uncompetitive, which links in with the first point. You're not making this competitive at all. And I think they're just it's a lot of smoke and mirrors to say, this is just about the money. This is just about making money. I think football teams they're not the football teams themselves. I think these owners are fed up of these teams being very static, and that they're based in their locations, and that you've got just the same people turning up for the matches. And yes, a season holder may pay £800, £900 a year for a ticket, which is a lot of money, but they would much rather take it over to Beijing, where for one match, a family of 5 people will pay £500 for tickets, and then they'll buy merchandise as well, and they'll buy a program, and then they'll eat a hot dog at the stand, or they'll have food in a restaurant in the stadium. This all adds up, where you're basically exploiting money, but in different avenues and globalizing the game. So, as a marketing's perspective, I think it actually is very interesting. I think if they let this happen, I think it would work. It would work like the NBA in America, the basketball league, where people will go and pay for this. Like let's put this down to that. The people will go pay for this. If you put Manchester United v Liverpool anywhere, people will go fucking see that game. Manchester United is one of the most recognised football teams in the world. I think Manchester United is famous for having more fans outside of Manchester than anyone else because it was kind of brought up from the Beckham era. If you put them against anyone in that league, maybe not Tottenham again or Arsenal at the moment, but they're going to sell tickets. They're going to sell merchandise. When are you going to see Marcus Rashford in I don't know, Singapore playing football match? It's never going to happen. But if you move this kind of globalization around the world, people will pay a lot of money to see that because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to do that. So I can see the marketing opportunity and the potential for making money from it. It's definitely there. It's just I think the way they've come around the league is it's flawed in I think the uncompetitiveness. And this, so as we discussed, there's a lot of flaws to this, and the backlash was huge amongst fans, amongst managers, amongst commentators. Literally, my news feed on Facebook, on BBC News, was just about football, about how this is the worst thing that's ever happened to football. And I think that's, let's be honest, anyone who doesn't care about football is just like going, well, who the fuck cares? And I was in the same boat, but I kind of listened to the arguments and the debates about it, and it is kind of interesting. I think you should check it out about what exactly is going on because it got pulled out after what 3 days? 3 days. So if you think about it, this league was thought up of before. It was announced early on this week, I think Monday or Tuesday, and it was pulled out by Thursday. So this league, this is not something some billionaires just imagined, went, okay, that'll be great, let's just get the league out, fuck it, that took 20 minutes. This league has been thought about for a couple of years. Like this takes investment, this takes spending, this takes management, there's so many different aspects to this. Within 2 days, it's gone, it no longer exists. And this kind of leads on to a couple of questions of why do we have billionaires dictating how they can do with what they can do with the sport of football? I'm not going to say our sport because I'm not a football fan, so I'm not going to be going, that's my sport. If it was tennis, I'll be on the streets throwing Molotov cocktails. I'm joking. We actually had a controversy in tennis kind of similar to this, actually, with the Davis Cup. But less about that. So where does this kind of leave the chairmans and the rich people, the billionaires, and football as a game itself? I think, interestingly, it kind of shows that football is going to go in a direction that's no longer domestic. We have the Champions League, it's European League, but football is stagnate. It's not working to its full potential. And I think that's what these people are looking at here, and they're looking to reform that. They're trying to essentially, again, as I said before, it is motivation of money. They are just looking to make as much money as possible. And football right now, as we just saw with the debt of the clubs, is not making its money, it's losing money. So it's asking for reform of football. And one of my mates actually asked me, he goes, okay, well, you don't really know football that much, but what would you do to change football? And this is where we kind of go into the second topic of reform of football. Let me know about the first topic if you have anything to add into that. My opinion of it, of the European Super League, I think that it was just poorly put together. but I think that's ultimately going to lead to something else in the next couple of years, 5 years. We're going to get a new kind of league, and it'll be properly done this time, and it'll have the right formatting to go ahead. It's not going to be I don't know what kind of mess they put out there, but it will be formatted properly, I think, and it will go ahead one way or another. Doesn't matter about the fans campaigning against it. But the form of football, it was a question that was asked to me after all this. And again, I'm saying this from an outsider point of view. I don't know football at all, but I have got some knowledge of the tables and leagues and teams. And essentially, from an outsider point of view, I do think football is, as the first point the second point said in the first topic, I think it's uncompetitive. I don't think it's a competitive sport in the fact that they have in UK and also in Europe as well, you have leagues designed to basically not change anything at all. There's nothing really to change the teams much. And I'll bring this back to the Premier League. So the Premier League is a top division league in British football. And basically it's the top 20 teams in the UK, and they compete to get the Premier League title. The Premier League, I think, is boring. It's pitting the same teams against each other, I think, is it twice? So home and away during the whole, or maybe a couple of times, I don't know. Again, I'm from about it. But essentially, let's just think about the Premier League is a league which pits the same 20 teams against each other either 2, 3, 4 times during the year, home and away. And you gain points to get to the top of the table. And whoever gets the top wins the Premier League. And there's also subdivisions. So the top 4 goes to Champions League. So they go to the best European league, competition in Europe. And then they introduced the Europa League, who I can't say. I think that's the top 4 or 5 to 8 or 6. I'm not too sure. But my problem with the Premier League is that there's only 3 relegation spots, which I think that needs to change. I think that makes it very anti-competitive, because you have, if you get to the bottom 3 out of 20, that's a 15% chance, which is like a large chance. Like if someone said to you, "I'll give you a disease, but it's a 15% chance of you dying," you'd be like, "No, I don't want that disease. But I'll give you £1 million. I still don't want that disease. No, I'm fine." For me, anyway. Maybe it's for you. It's different. I don't know. Tell me. I think they need to increase that. I think they need to increase the competition in the Premier League to make it more diverse. So you have a lot more teams from the Championship, which is the league below, to get promoted to the top. I think just having 3 spots where 3 teams go down every year, it makes it too slow. It makes it uncompetitive, because there are very good teams in the Championship, and they absolutely demolish. They absolutely demolish that league, and then they get back up to the Premier League, and they have one bad season, and then they're demoted back down again. I think it needs to kind of be filtrated that you have, I think, maybe 6 relegation spots, possibly 8. Now, you may think that's a lot of people. That is a lot of teams, but it also means that the top teams can also be in jeopardy as well. You have these top teams who happen to be the richest team, bar Leicester. But say they have a bad season and 8 people get relegated, and they come 13th, which Arsenal could actually happen to Arsenal this year. Then they will get relegated to the league below them, which means that they have to become more competitive. It means that you have to basically fight for survival in the Premier League. You have to fight to be, as the name suggests, Premier. Okay. I think having just 3 spots means that it kind of creates this oligopoly of teams who can stay there forever. So if you think about all the teams in the Premier League: Liverpool, Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham, Everton. I don't know fucking football teams. Manchester City at the moment. They have a staple of staying up there. They have not moved. They've never moved in the Premier League. I don't think any of them have ever been demoted. But that kind of needs to change a little bit. It needs to be a little bit more jeopardy for them, because all they have to do is put in substandard performances and they can finish 15th in the league and they're fine. They're still at the top. But you still have these lower teams who don't have the money, who are fighting for survival, who are at 16th, 17th. Think about Newcastle. Newcastle have stayed in the Premier League for a long time. I think they might have been demoted once. I'm not too sure. Let's check Newcastle. Anyway, Newcastle are always fighting for demotion. And they're always finishing, I think, at the moment, 15th, 16th, and they don't get demoted. And that's a team who, I think Newcastle's great. I think their fans are amazing, but they need to have some kind of jeopardy of just going, okay, we're going to go for 15th this season. I don't think any team should say, let's go for 15th. I think you should be saying, hey, let's try and get top 10, top 8. This should be interlinked to kind of Formula One if you think about it. Formula One, you have the top teams, which is Mercedes, Red Bull. I'd put maybe McLaren there, but they were maybe 10 years ago. And they know that they can just stroll in and they'll win every race because they have the money to stay there and just to be substandard. Although I say substandard, Mercedes keeps winning, so does Red Bull. But the same with maybe, if you think about it, the middle tier groups such as so McLaren, Renault, they are high performing teams, but they know that they can't get relegated from Formula One. I guess you can't really get relegated from Formula One unless you just run out of money, essentially. So I think Newcastle and these kind of teams as well, maybe like Sunderland, West Bromwich, Aston Villa. I'm naming teams which might not even be in the Premier League right now. But I think they need to kind of really open that up, the relegation part. I think they need to also slimline the Champions League. So there's 4 spots for Champions League. I think they need to make that 2 and make the Champions League a smaller competition. One of the biggest problems actually the ESL had as well is that football is becoming uncompetitive, where you're getting in the Champions League, you get a very high performing team. So in this case, it would be Manchester City, who are the top British team at the moment, or Liverpool, or Barcelona, or Bayern Munich, who I think won it last year. And in the first round, they'll meet a team who they come from Poland. They're third in the Polish division, and they absolutely decimate them, which fans don't want to see. You don't want to see a one-sided affair. I think the Champions League needs to be slimmed down and make it either a round of 16 competition or a round of 32. There's no need for just kind of the tables at the beginning or the legs. Just go in, one match decides it all, and let's just see who can get to the top of that. I'm sure that would change a lot of the same title holders on the Champions League. If you see the Champions League, let's see, 2 seconds. I'm just going to check the by year Champions League winners by year. Real Madrid. Okay, this is going from 2018. Don't know why. I think Liverpool were 2019 champions, were they? 2020 is Bayern Munich. So Bayern Munich, Liverpool, and then it shows Real Madrid, Liverpool in the final. Real Madrid in 2016, Juventus runners up. Real Madrid in 2015, Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus in the finals. It's the same fucking teams. You have the whole of Europe, you have the whole continent, and you've got the same fucking teams, the competition. Because competition doesn't work. It's too much risk aversion for these big teams to lose. You know, you have 2 legs in each game, one home and one away. There's a league at the beginning, so you can get to the top. It doesn't work, I don't think. I think you need to streamline the competition, give it to the top 2 spots of the Premier League, which would be at this moment Manchester City, Man United. Pit them all together, and then have it 1 match each season, which wouldn't be home and away. It would be at a different stadium somewhere. And then you can maybe put the stadium in Turkey or somewhere in the European facility. I think then you would have a very much more competitive Champions League. But again, I'm just a bystander. Don't fucking look at me. Another big reform that we want to speak about is the money in football. People always like to complain. I think that's maybe the first argument they always say, with players getting paid too much money, which is true. They do get paid too much money. I think Harry Kane gets paid 350 grand a fucking week or something, which is a stupid amount of money, especially when it's not performance based. Well, it is kind of performance based. If they score a goal, they get a bonus or they assist. I think, again, to increase the competitiveness of it, you have to do performance based pay, which sounds shit if you're a team which is losing all the time. But at least then, I think that drive will make sure that you try 110% next time. I think, again, reflecting on tennis, is that when you're in the lower leagues, so the lower competitions, you are relying on paycheck to paycheck. You go to each tournament and you are relying on getting to the quarterfinals or semi-finals. If you don't make it, then you can't afford to get the flight to the next tournament. You have to walk or take a bus or a car, or you can't stay in a hotel. You have to stay at a friend's house or stay in the tennis club. So there's a lot of kind of facilities in which competitiveness really resides. It's not just about playing for a team and representing them, but I think also about your drive and willingness, which I think you see in the top performing athletes. Again, end of the day, Novak Djokovic and Roger Federer aren't sleeping on the floor. They're doing it for a drive to win trophies, but it's a competitiveness in which they have a single drive to do that. And I think that's lost in football players, where they'll get paid a lot of money, but they can also think, well, I can rely that on my teammate, as is with other sports. I really think, I could be wrong again. And so talking about money, you have, again, the reforms, which a lot of a topic that's been spoke about recently is that these clubs are owned by billionaires who are so out of touch with football, they can't even name the players on their teams, which is understandable. I really do agree with that. And in Germany, they have their teams a 51-49 split, where 51% of the team is owned by the fans, and then 49 is by other investors. So the fans basically have the decision-making abilities to decide whether they could join a league or change the strip or colour. And I think that's a good idea. The only problem with that is, though, is, as we discussed before, these teams are in so much debt that if they were to get in debt again, who's going to pay up the money? The fans, it might be easy to round up the money, of course, but are the fans willing to keep forking out 50 quid each or 100 quid each every 6 months? I don't know. I really don't know. It's a working man's game, so I'm just kind of reflecting on, can they afford that? So money is very important in this. I think it's the biggest factor in the game being prevalent in our eyes, but also it's also the downfall of the game. It's also the first criticism of football. There's too much money being spent for this player. This manager is getting this much money. This manager is being fired and then being replaced for this guy for this much money. This league being set up is all about money. It's always about money. The first criticism about money. So it is the big downfall. My reform for that is, I don't know, maybe put less money. I really don't know, but it needs to be addressed essentially. Quite an interesting statistic is, though, football is a huge revenue provider to the UK in itself. In 2016-2017, the tax year, this was by EY, football in itself contributed £3.3 billion in taxes. £1 billion. So it's a huge influx of cash. And this is why you saw with the ESL, the UK government getting involved, because they want a piece of that pie, essentially. You can see that they said, oh, this is a disgrace for football, it ruins the tradition of football. But I'm sure if the ESL said to them, look, we'll give you 15% of the revenues made in your country, They would keep very quiet. They would keep very quiet. If there's an extra 200 million coming their way, they'll be like, well, shit happens. Um, I also think that there's too many competitions in football. I think that you've got the Premier League, Champions League, Europa League. There's the FA Cup. There's the EFL. There's too many competitions. It kind of dilutes the game again. I think the FA Cup's great. I think that's probably the only. I think the FA Cup is probably the best competition for football in my eyes domestically because it pits football clubs from anywhere. You could literally have Manchester United against your local fucking football team. It's fucking great. I think that's hilarious. So I think that's the best competition in my eyes. Yes, okay, you might get one-sided scores, but you do get shocks as well. And those shocks are what bring value. It's what builds a team up. It's what brings them investors. So if you're playing Manchester United at home at your home ground and you've got 500 seats, that place will be packed with people to the rafters. And if you even get one goal against them, or say God forbid you fucking beat them, that football team will become underdog to new hot talent, and it'll bring so much more to them. Again, that's kind of a defense against the ESL, is that you would never get that in the ESL because it'll all be high performing teams who basically play the same game. So I think the FA Cup should stay. I think the Premier League needs to be reformed, as we discussed. I think the EFL needs to go. That's just a pointless competition, just for again more money. Um, and the Champions League, as I said before, needs to be reformed a little bit. I'm going to talk about the game itself as well. I'm sorry, football guys who are listening, or sorry, people who are listening, thinking, "What the fuck's he saying about our sport?" I'm sorry. I think the football match themselves are too long. They're too fucking 90 minutes. And again, prove me wrong when I say this, but when you see a match, and it's a competitive match, and it's a competition game, so a Champions League game, and a team is 2-1 up, and it's 70 minutes. What do? They waste time. There's too much time wasting in the game. So they won't attack. There's no aggression. They'll just pass the ball at the back with the defender and the goalkeeper just to waste time. I can understand it's strategic, but they will do that for 15, 20 minutes in the game. And it's boring. It's fucking boring. Like, you're sitting there going, okay, well, this is boring. I think that kind of needs to be reformed into that individual issue that I just said there, like rugby, where after 5 seconds you need to use the ball, you need to attack, you need to be aggressive. I think that needs to be implemented. I think 90 minutes is too long. I think maybe 80 minutes. Maybe let's make it a rugby match. Extra time is what, 15 minutes each. Make that 10 minutes. Refine the game to make it more interesting. Because if there's less time, then there's not enough time to score as many goals. People like to see high quality games where there's a lot of goals and a lot of drama, but I think a lot of football matches are now really dull. And this is kind of linked to the next point I'm going to raise as well, is that VAR, which is basically the computer system which looks at goals and disallows them, or looks at fouls, and the referee can review them from a camera on the pitch, has meant that there's a lot more draws and nil-nils in football because a lot more goals are being disallowed because of fouls. A lot more fouls are given. A lot more fouls are not given. It's refining the game, and it's making the game almost a little bit boring because it's making the game more legitimate. And that means that you're looking at 90 minutes, a goalless 0-0 draw, which no one wants to see. People want to see the goals. And I can understand football is about momentum, and you have to play the passing game to get the right opportunity to score one. But it's becoming less and less. There's a lot more 0-0 draws in football than there ever was before VAR. And I'm not saying VAR is a bad thing. I think VAR is a good thing. But I think there kind of needs to be a more driven incentive for football players to get on the pitch, score a goal as quickly as possible. It makes it more reckless, but it also means that they have to be more strategic. And again, kind of jumping on the rules of football about aggression, I think also this malarkey of fouling and referees have no power, that needs to change. That really needs to change. I think it's something everyone can agree on, is that referees are literally just people who wave a card about if and when they want to. There needs to be a reform in that. If a footballer player is fouled and they're rolling around the grass for 3 minutes holding their ankles, they need to be sent off. That's it. If you do that, you're sent off. Goodbye. See you later. Hasta la vista, baby. That's the end. Don't do that. What are you doing? Stop being a pussy. And I understand you get legitimate injuries in football, but don't be doing that. Um, I think again the time wasting. The managers who are being abusive to everyone on the fucking pitch. Like, what the fuck are you doing? I think there needs to be a lot of steps taken from rugby to kind of be implemented with football. The referee needs to be someone of authority on the pitch. They need to control the game, and I don't mean influence the game, but control the game, as in control the players to fucking behave. And if they start fighting, they're off the pitch. If they start kicking off at you, you get a yellow card or a sin bin. Bring the sin bin. Send them off for 10 minutes, get them back on. There you go. Cool. Get them a fine. People get fined in sports. You get fined in tennis if you abuse an umpire. Do it in football. I think these are ideas to kind of quicken the game up, make it more electrifying, because sports are developing. Sports are changing a lot. And football is the same. Obviously, you don't have the same football company, the same kind of type of football that you did in the 70s, where it was like a brown leather fucking heavy ball. Now you have these fantastic balls which can curl around fucking 90-degree angles. But I think the game and the infrastructure of itself is really stagnated. Again, I'll reflect to tennis, where tennis is taking on board these ideas and they've quickened the game up. So their tournaments now are no longer all 5-set matches for men's. Most of them are 3-set matches, except for Grand Slams. They've made them quicker by putting tie-break sets at the end of them. Of course, you still get matches which last 5 hours, but again, it's competitive. If it's a 5-hour match, it's a competitive match, and you're watching it because you're thinking, who the fuck's going to win this? You don't know. You're on the edge of the seat. They've brought in technology to look at the lines. Hawkeye, they've had that for years before even VAR. They're on time clocks, so you have to serve within 20 seconds. So they're developing the game, and yeah, okay, there's still other problems with the game, I think, but they are moving it faster so that it can keep up with young people. They're keeping young people invested. They've made a tournament in tennis, which is the under 21s Milan finals, and they've just completely changed the game there, where all they have is 8 of the top under 21 players in the world play against each other, ATP stars, and they've changed the game there in a format where it's less games in each set, it's quicker. The challenge system is where there's no lines people, so essentially you're not wasting time with a battle with the umpire. It's just the game itself, and it's so competitive. It's enthralling to watch. As a tennis fan, I think a lot of sports can learn from that and embed it into their sports, because if you don't, your sport is going to die out. Sports are not certified to stay forever. Even football, which is the most popular sport in the UK and the world, I think, it can die out. There were sports in the Roman gladiator times in the Olympics, which people don't play anymore. People don't fucking play javelin, do they? They're still there in the Olympics, but who the fuck do you know that throws the javelin? No one. And that was one of the most popular sports in those times. Now we're talking 2,000 years, but you want your sport to be around. You want to tell your kids, you want to tell your grandkids about it. So I think football is just kind of lacking behind in those changes, and they make huge changes such as the ESL, but it's just not right. It's just not looking at the game and saying this is what the game needs. It's just money grabbing. Okay, so that was my reforms of football essentially. I think I've touched everything there. Yeah. So this kind of leads me on to football in itself affecting you and I? And this might be the interesting part for people who don't like football, who don't have any interest in football. But if you think about it, football is inherently part of your life. You may not like football, you may fucking hate it, you may have no interest in it, but every day you're affected by football or its knock-on effects. So, for example, myself, as I said, I know a little bit about football, but I don't know that much. I'm out of the loop. But how am I affected by football? Well, I live in Gorgie in Edinburgh, which is basically the heart of Hearts, the Heart of Hearts, which is the local football team in Edinburgh. And every time they have a match pre-COVID, the streets would be littered with men and women and children with maroon shirts on. You couldn't go anywhere because it was just celebrations all the time. It was people crowding the streets. It's an infrastructure here of this is the center of the economy, Hearts. That's crazy. It's fucking crazy. And there's many times where I try to get to work. You know, I start work at 5. Usually it takes me 20 minutes on the bus to get to work. But I'd have to take the bus at 4 because just to get through Gorgie in itself, a 300-metre road on Gorgie roads, it would take 20 minutes because there'd be fans all over the roads. There'd be 50 people at the bus stop waiting for the bus. There was people queuing up to get into the football stadium, which the bus couldn't get past. There's people throwing shit everywhere. It's a joke. This kind of leads me on to the question of, that's just one example, but football, is it a religion? Is it a cult? What do you think? I'm asking this question because I believe it is a religion, and I'll explain why. Let's start off with actually 2 seconds. I'm going to go for a piss. I'm going to put this. I'll be back in 3 seconds. That was the quickest piss anyone's ever had. Anyway, I'm back. So we're talking about football being a religion. So let's start off with just what the definition of a religion is. So we're getting this from a very reliable source. It's called Wikipedia. So if you do see the definition of religion is, it's a controversial and complicated subject. And it says the Oxford Dictionaries define religion as the belief in and worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially a personal god or gods. That's from Oxford Dictionaries. And 2 seconds. Oh, there's other ones. And then the competing definition of this come from an Emil Durkheim, defines religion as a unified system of beliefs and practices relative to sacred things. So that is to say things set apart and forbidden. Beliefs and practices which unite into one single moral community called a church, all those who adhere to them. Okay, so let's take those 2 definitions and apply them to football. So the first definition is essentially people believe in a higher being. Can we apply it to football? Not directly, no, because there is no higher being in itself. So I think people might try to think, maybe if we're trying to be very critical, reflecting this on, if you support a team, it would be the manager of the team or a player. So if you supported Juventus, Cristiano Ronaldo would be your superhuman god, essentially. But we all know that they're not superhuman. They may be very, very good at football. They may make a lot of money, but we don't worship them in that sense because they're just human beings, as you and I are. But I can kind of see this, because God is not defined as a human being. They're not defined as one entity. I can kind of, if I was going to try and argue for this definition, is that saying the actual game itself, the actual maybe stadium, the actual football pitch which you worship and you adore, is the god, is the superhuman entity. As supporters of a team, you are you worship the team because of its either location that you've had family ties with, that you've just found and liked, and the emphasis of football is that it is geographically located with the name itself. So Liverpool, surprisingly, is in Liverpool. Hearts is in Edinburgh. Hearts of Midlothian is in Edinburgh, Midlothian. Of course, other football clubs have names. So you've got like Rangers. But where's Rangers based? Fuck, I don't know. I should know. Is it Byers Road? Anyway, but mostly they'll be geographically located by their name. So Manchester United in Manchester, Tottenham Hotspur and Tottenham in London. They have a significance to their name in ecology of that location of the football pitch. It sounds stupid. What all these grown people are worshipping a football pitch, a bit of grass. But I think in that definition that could be applied because people do believe and worship these places and these games. Football is so key to so many people, especially in the UK. That's all my experience with it really is. You yourself, if you think about it, um, you will be directly affected by football, whether you're a football fan or not. Your family might be football fans. They might have the same team in your family, or you'll have friends who are football fans. I'm sure a lot of you have a lot of friends who go to the game, who support a particular team, who are very passionate about that team. I myself have a few friends who have several different teams. There's a guy called Jamie Kane who literally he loves every single football team and he'll go to any game and he'll support a random team there because he's a funny boy. But he loves the game, I think. He loves the game. And he's a funny boy. I love him. But football is, whether you like it or not, it is still going to be part of your life in an indirect way, in a context of human behaviour. In the place that you live, for example, I live in Gorgie. Everyone here is a Hearts fan. If I live down in Leith, everyone there is a Hibs fan. If I lived on Byers Road, where the fuck is Byers Road? Which football team's there? I am such an amateur. Rangers, Celtic, and is it Byers Road? Oh, it's Patrick. What? How the fuck am I? Oh, I'm so stupid. Where's Rangers? I'm sure there's people listening that's going, Rangers is on this plucking place. Location. Amano, what? It's a Scottish professional club. Yeah, I know it is in the Govan district. Where? Mate, I don't know. I don't know where Rangers is. Like Ibrox. Oh, the Ibrox. Idiot. Fucking idiot. Okay. Where is the Ibrox? South side. Oh, I do know where that is. Okay. I'm so stupid. I actually knew that. Okay, it's the Ibrox. So if you're in the south side of Glasgow, you're going to support Rangers. If you go down there with a Celtic top on or green, or then you could be in. Not, I'm not going to say it's danger. I think we've changed now, but you will not be as well received if you went into a Rangers pub. You'd probably be killed. I've lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? So geographically, we're affected in that wherever you live, there'll be a football team near you who have their significant fans, and you'll see them. In regards to, actually, we've mentioned it before, you're going to see football everywhere you go. If you go outside just now and go for a walk for 20 minutes around your local neighbourhood or park, you will see football posts there. You'll see kids playing football or adults playing football. Football is everywhere. You might even get the odd cunt who kicks the football where you're walking and they're like, hit it back. And you've got to kick it back. That happens a lot. And it's just this one little football that it's so insignificant if you just do not have anything to do with football. That is actually indirectly a part of your life as well. We talked about it before, football players, managers, football teams, about their advertising, about they're businesses. If you think about Gorgie and the businesses here, this area was brought up from that football stadium. A lot of businesses here. There's a few cafes, there's a few pubs as well, which are open just on the back of Hearts fans. There's a Hearts pub right opposite me. These places are business that were open from football fans indirectly. So we kind of bring that back to, well, is the pitch itself, is the stadium itself an entity of God? I think that argument is present there, but ultimately you can't agree with that first definition. I think because there is no superhuman God in that. But my second argument was what I was trying to kind of convey there. So then we go to the second definition of a collective belief, and I think we can all agree this is definitely the one that we're going to adhere to. In that a religion of football is a collective belief. We, as I mentioned before, you have your family members who will be your dad, your granddad, or your mum, your sister, who they all support the same football team. Now, obviously, there's a few families who have different sides. Usually, like married couples, the one person will have a family member who support Manchester United, and the other team, and the wife or the other partner will support Manchester City. And usually, it's a friendly affair, I would hope. But they have that collective belief that they will support that team, and that is what they do. That is how it's always been, and that's how their granddad's granddad did it, and that's how everyone else has done it in their family. It's just so strange, isn't it, that you kind of can live in that context. And there might be people listening to this now who do not believe in football, but their family do, and they've just decided, it's not for me, really. I think that's kind of because of the times we live in. People are a lot more open now. They have a lot more construct in how they can and cannot believe in. But I really agree that football is a religion in that sense, a collective belief of their football team, that their school friends go to that football club, that they see their football matches on Saturday, that you must go with them to be part of that group, to be part of the friends. So it's something to think about there. I think finally, though, we should ask the question, is football a cult? And this is the dangerous part, because football does have its downfalls. Football does definitely have its downfalls. It's not perfect in any regards to the matter. I think one of the biggest problems that football has is that we talked about these collective beliefs, is that it brings up dangerous factions such as gangs, hooligans, people who have other agendas, not just the footballism. From football teams themselves, you could get a bunch of people who start believing fascist views. You have people that believe in racist views. You can also get good people from football clubs. You have a lot of good football clubs that stem other societies and clubs that do good things for children. So they'll go play football with them, or they'll go to schools and they'll play games, or they'll donate to charities. That's fantastic. But in regards to that, it also brings the evil in hooliganism. I think there's something quite interesting you should look at if you're listening to this now. Just Google violence statistics in football. I think I've got the statistics here. Is that it's so in 2019-20 season. This is from the government UK. There was 1,089 football-related arrests under one act. One act. Now, this is 21% decrease the season. That's because of COVID. Public disorder, violent disorder. With this, you have a bunch of highly impassioned people. It does bring violence. It does bring public disorder, as they put here. And this links to being a cult, because the difference between a religion and a cult is, a religion is that you believe in one collective idea and you can get out of that religion if you want to. So if I believe in Buddha, I think that's great, cool. Yeah, I'll worship him. But then you know what? Tomorrow, I no longer believe in that, and I can get out. With the cult is that you have the collective belief and idea, which was probably forced upon you. Again, that could be questioned with football, but it's very hard to get out of that idea because they brainwash you to stay within that fraction, and the fraction will use you rather than help you. Religion's not meant to hurt you in any way. Essentially, a religion is just a belief of morality, unless we talk about very extremist religions. But if you think about generally Christianity, Buddhism, Muslims, their beliefs is really about peace and about general rules in life. If you think about religions as constitutions and rules in life. And yes, some may not agree. So, like homosexuality in Christianity is still forbidden with the Vatican. Okay, let's question. We can question that, and people can leave the church if they want to. When it becomes a cult is when these kind of ideas are brainwashed on you, and you must implement them. Otherwise, you will be out of the cult, and you must pay for the cult either with your services or with money. It's a much more constricted and defining institution rather than religion. I think that's my kind of general description of them both. But again, I could be wrong. Prove me wrong. But we were talking about violence, and that football could be considered ultimately a cult where you have these fractions brought off from football that you are part of the club, that you are one of these gangsters, one of these hooligans who do violence, who attack other teams, who set things on fire, who do these atrocious acts to actually, for one belief, that is the football club. But that football club doesn't believe in that at all. That cult has literally taken their one common belief: we all support this football team. Let's go do this in their name. But that's not the belief of the football club at all. And I'm reading this here, and it's saying that was the rests. Football is a dangerous sport, like as in the actual game itself. No, I'm sure people have died on the pitch. I think people have died of heart attacks on the pitch. But you have to be wary if you go to a football game. If how many times, if any of you have gone to a football match, and you go to a particular stadium or place, are you told, be careful because their football fans are dangerous? If you remember the Euros in Poland and Ukraine, people warned, if you're of a ethnic or coloured background, don't go there because you'll be beaten up. And that's just from football itself. Like, there's no other sport that would happen. If you Google right now, tennis fucking arrests, what? Like, there's none. They have arrests because of fixing, because of gambling. Okay, fine. Tennis a little bit more sneaky, but there's fucking nothing. Rugby, I think maybe you have a bunch of drunken, disorderly people, but it's just drunk people because they're at the rugby all day. The rugby is an event. Football is an actual gangster, dangerous fraction in it, and maybe a small fraction, but it's still there. It's like crossing gangsters. You just don't want to do that, and that kind of invites the cult aspect of it, I think, that football has. So I fully believe that football is a religion. In regards to a cult itself, I think that there is elements of a cult in it. I think it's very difficult if you're part of that hooliganism and that gangster side of it, that it's very difficult to get out of because you're a collective, you all know each other, you all know where you live, and if you betray the rules, you're out and you could be heavily fined. As in, when I say fined, you could be beaten up, you could be, you could be killed. I mean, people have been killed in fucking football riots. But these are kind of more in-depth stories that we can look into at a further time. Probably not ever, but I just want to kind of explore that. Is football, what is it? Essentially. And lastly, I think that we should kind of emphasize, as I didn't really mention this before, but football is a religion because it may not have churches, but if you think of the cathedrals as being the stadiums, the churches being your local football club that you play five-a-side for, and the pastors and priests being the goalposts in the park. These are all physical objects that we see every day. You can see them every day. If you walk your dog down the park, you're seeing goalposts, you're seeing footballs that are part of our lives. And I think it's something to recognize. Just next time you're down the park, you see a bunch of goalposts, you kind of think, okay, those goalposts, did that make a player go to Hearts down the road? Or, why are they there? Why is that symbolism there? Think of those goalposts as a cross, essentially. But that's my, I think, take on that. Yeah. Well, I think we'll need to leave it there. I think we've kind of summed it up nicely. Not really, but if you have any questions, please, send them through to me. Comment on the video, like or dislike it. Send me a message on Instagram, the KBeatBot Podcast, and let me know what you think. Like, really, I really like to hear your opinions. A couple of you have messaged me recently about my last one, which I like to have a conversation with you about. So really, just get involved and just send me a message. If it doesn't have to be about football, it could be about anything. And if you like or agree or disagree, let me know. I'm not going to bite. I'm not going to tell you I hate you for doing it. Please criticize me all you want or agree with me all you want. I need to rate this beer. I said at the beginning it was a bit flatline, didn't I? It's okay. I've not finished it. It's doable. Like, I wouldn't say no to another one. It's kind of like the girl at the end of the night at the club. You've had a few beers, and you just go, yeah, it's doable. I wouldn't say no the second time. So I'm going to give this out of 69. I'm going to give this a 38 out of 69. We'll give it. So check that out. I'll put the link in the description. That's 7 Giraffes. So thank you for listening so much. I do appreciate you taking some time out. Give us a little subscribe. Say hello. I will be streaming as well, streaming Fortnite or some other games. So let me know if you want to get involved. I'll do that during the week as well. So just check us out there. And yeah, we're going to leave it there. My name is Calvin, or KBeatBot. Thank you so much for listening. This has been the worst podcast in the world, as proclaimed by Julian Maxwell, who's getting charged again. And yeah, I'm going to go out in the sunshine and play some fucking football. Hot my skin like a plum. Don't call me Elfo and slap my bum. I'm in the bath, baby, I don't give a fuck. I should see the boys, but I'd rather see my duck. I'm having a bath, sugar, I'm hanging in my tub. There's bubbles in my ass and it's better than the club. I'm in the bath, baby.